Welcome back to Old School Sports, and thanks for watching our continued playthrough of the Miami Marlins in OOTP 22. We are in the early stages of the 2024 to 2025 offseason after a disappointing 2024. We have to make some big decisions, and we've started to do those. We're not even to free agency yet, and you can see we've freed up almost $18 million for free agents and almost $10 million or over $10 million for extensions. And the way we've done that is we've made several trades to kind of really change the direction of the franchise. Notably, since the end of the previous season, we traded away our 26-year-old second baseman, Jazz Chisholm. You can see a good player. Last year hit 23 homers for us, a pretty solid fielder. But he's getting to the point where he's getting near the end of his arbitration years and getting quite expensive. Is a relatively small market team, had to make some difficult decisions. Probably should have traded him away a season or two ago, but we traded him and a minor league pitcher for a potential back of the rotation starter from the Orioles and Dean Kramer, as well as a couple minor league pitchers. So that was the first move. A even more significant move was trading away J.D. Davis. And this was a tough one because if you've been watching, you'll remember that he was one of our supposedly key acquisitions last offseason. You can see didn't have that great a year for us. Played 161 games, so he was very durable, but batted just .237 with a .317 OBP. And he didn't have a ton of value, and we actually had to retain 10% of his contract. He's a free agent after this season. But we got another decent pitcher, a reliever, Eduard Bazardo from Boston for him. Should slot right in to the middle of our bullpen, which will be helpful. We traded away our starting center fielder for the past several seasons since we started this playthrough. He came up late 21 and has been our starter for the last 3 years. Monty Harrison, very good defensively, but he has struggled to reach the Mendoza line in terms of his batting average regularly and has just been too big a problem offensively for us to kind of live with that anymore. One of our owner's big goals for this offseason is to improve our offense next year, and hopefully upgrading at center field a little bit will help do that. We got a right fielder, Luis Gonzalez, in return. Probably a 4A type player. Did not play in the majors last year. Was in AAA all season, but could contribute a little bit. Also traded away utility outfielder Trey Mancini, as well as a couple minor leaguers. Basically, this was not that he had a huge salary, but it was a salary dump essentially to get him off the roster, open up some space for younger players. And we got a minor league reliever, Scott Barlow, in return, so not much there. And then we traded away JT Brubaker, who we traded for just last season. A solid average starter, but starting to make a little bit of money, and we wanted to clear some salary space, so that was another trade that we made. You can see we also released Nico Goodrum, we released Josh Roberson, we released veteran center fielder John Birdie, kind of got rid of some people who were on center fielder Victor Mesa, got rid of several people who were on major league contracts that just didn't really have a future other than perhaps depth. They'd probably be, the third or fourth person that we called up from AAA in the event of, a number of injuries on the team. So wanted to free up as much money as possible to help us on that front. So we do have a little money going into free agency now. We've made some significant changes to the team, have some gaps to fill. If you look at our roster, you can see there's not a lot here right now. We still have our two catchers. Very happy with Barnhart and Hedges defensively. But we now have a hole at third base with getting rid of J.D. Davis, and we also have a hole at second base, trading away Jazz Chisholm. There's a chance that Bryson Brigman could fill in at second base for us, but we also have a pretty attractive option in the minors we'll be bringing up. And then in the outfield, Jesus Sanchez has been a competent center fielder. We've traded him up there a little bit. But again, we'll be probably looking to the minor leagues for some help there. If we look at our AAA roster in Jacksonville, can kind of highlight a couple of the players who may get more time this year. Mo Hampton Jr. at center field can potentially take over for Monty Harrison. Also a good defensive center fielder. Does not look like he's going to hit a ton. Not great at avoiding Ks and not great at making contact. But given that Monty Harrison has struggled to hit 200 for us since he came up, figured we could save a little money and put Hampton in that spot and still get good defense. And if we're able to find a trade or free agent who's even better, more power to us. And then we'll have to think about second base. Brigman could work. May not be the total answer. He does make contact and have a good eye and avoid Ks, which are all things that our team has struggled with. And you can see that last season he hit 309 for us with a on-base percentage of 377, OPS plus of 118 in 220 at-bats. Obviously, if he could duplicate that over the course of the season, would be a huge win for us, given that his contract is the major league minimum. So we'll probably give him the first chance. But again, if somebody really good happens to be in free agency, or we find a trade that someone makes us an offer we can't refuse, he could return to kind of more of a utility infielder role. Or, he could potentially slide to third base, as I mentioned, with the trade away of J.D. Davis. We've got a hole there, too. So probably looking for either a second baseman or a third baseman through free agency and or trades this offseason. And we'll also be looking to upgrade the pitching staff a bit. Sandy Alcantara is a free agent who's going to be leaving. But we do have a little more kind of majorly in Seth Lugo, sorry for interrupting myself there. But Seth Lugo, who has been our closer for the last season and a half, is also going to be leaving, and we won't be able to afford him. So two big holes with Alcantara and Lugo. That being said, reasonably happy with what our pitching staff looks like right now, given our budgetary constraints. So probably will be a little less aggressive there. And those of you who have been watching and have seen our big free agency acquisitions over the past couple off seasons of Jamison Talon and Justin Verlander probably recognize that it's best if we just don't spend any money on free agent pitchers, since we have a pretty poor track record of good execution on that. So we are going to continue on with the off season, but wanted to update the group on the changes that we have made, because we've gotten rid of 3 people who were starters last year in terms of second base Chisholm, third base Davis, and center field Monty Harrison. So it's going to be a very different looking team next year when we try to kind of meet our goals for the season, which are to play .500 ball, improve our on-base percentage, and acquire a Gold Glove Award winner. So we'll be working on that for the rest of the off-season. And I did mean to mention one other player who's probably going to be moving on to the Major League roster. I mentioned Brigman is a potential second baseman, and then Matt Theus, who's been kind of a backup corner infielder for us for the last couple of seasons. decent batting profile, has actually done pretty well with OPS pluses well over 100 in 150 to 250 at bats each of the last few seasons. Could potentially slide in. But the other person I wanted to mention was Peyton Stovall, who we're starting to try to train up to play third base, and he had a really exceptional season for us last year in the minors. Batted over 300 with a OPS plus of 125 in Double-A, and then came up and played 30 games for Jacksonville in Triple-A, where we hit a scalding 377 for us, 164 OPS plus. You can see potentially excellent contact with decent power and a pretty good eye in avoiding Ks. Not a great defensive player, kind of a league average type second baseman, and we would like, better than that defensively. So we may give him in the preseason in training camp and see if he can, train up a little bit at second base, and then he could potentially, slot into second or third base for us next year also. He's ranked as the 70th best prospect in baseball now. He was one of our first round picks our first year running the team back in 2021. And you can see he'll be 22 years old by the start of next season. So I forgot to mention him earlier, but Peyton Stovall is the other person who will likely be on the major league team next year to help fill in for the losses of Chisholm and Davis due to the trades that we made. So we're at the start of free agency now, and there are some options. We're at this point now where we've got over $21 million for free agents this season, although we've got less than $9 million for extensions with the expected increases that some players on our team, most notably Jesus Sanchez, will be getting next year in arbitration. So that limited our money there a bit. But there's definitely some options. Austin Meadows is the prize of free agency this year. You can see very solid offensive profile, corner outfielder, who, over the last several seasons has been a well above average offensive player for Tampa Bay. Probably going to be too rich for us to get. Some of the other guys that we are looking at, Jeff McNeil, probably going to be too expensive also, and is fragile and expensive, so would be a relatively risky proposition for us. But you can see great contact in gap power, great at avoiding Ks, and adequate power and eye. Has also been an above average offensive player, and then average defensively, but relatively versatile in terms of being able to play second and third, which are both positions of need potentially for us, as well as corner outfield spots. So he would be kind of interesting. Another name that we've thought about a little bit is Dominic Smith. Solid offensive player, had a really good season last year with leading the league with 54 doubles, 20 homers, drove in 84, 111 OPS plus, which was actually down from where he was the season before, which he split through between Minnesota and the Mets. But after spending a season and a half in Minnesota, he's a free agent. First base and left field, not huge needs for us, but we do need to improve the offense, and he might be able to help with that. So he's another option that we're thinking of. Other than that, would be good to get a decent defensive utility infielder. Looking at what's available at shortstop, there's not a ton out there that we could really afford. J.P. Crawford might be the best option. Decent defensively, not a great bat. For us, the $3 million area for utility infielder seems a bit like a luxury. And he's also coming off of a ruptured Achilles tendon that cost him the last 2 months of last season. So if his price comes down and he's still out there a few months from now, a possibility for us. Besides that, Again, probably relatively expensive for us, but Gene Segura, if he's done fighting with Joe Girardi, might not be a bad utility infielder, potential starter for us. But, not a great offensive profile, but reasonably versatile defensively, could even play short in a pinch. But again, close to $4 million for a player who will be 35 next season is probably too much of a luxury for us to be able to afford. So we will see where we go with the offensive upgrades. As I mentioned earlier, pitching probably less of a priority for us to try to upgrade. But there's obviously some big names out there. Unfortunately, many of the biggest names, Shane Bieber, Noah Syndergaard, and Luis Severino, are all coming off of relatively significant injuries. So, potentially, Severino, if we wanted to roll the dice the way we have in the previous off seasons with Talon and Verlander, we could try to slot in Severino as a starter for us. But you can see that he literally has not pitched in 2 full seasons. So probably would be a fool's errand for us to think that he's going to be quite this good coming off of a torn rotator cuff that he suffered back in March of 2023 and has missed both the 23 and 24 seasons. Certainly we can't afford to take a flyer on him at $9 million for that. What we really need to do is add a lefty arm. Taylor Rogers would be a really good arm for the bullpen potentially. Will Smith, also a left-handed thrower, veteran player. But these guys are looking for $5.5 million and over $8 million. Probably too rich for us. But at some point in the offseason, would like to get a left-handed arm. Jose Castillo will, scout him a little bit to see if perhaps he may be the answer. We've already got high scouting accuracy on him, but we'll try to make that a little better. So there are several different ways that we'll be able to go this off season. We are going to break it up into 2 pieces. So we'll spend some time in the coming days actually executing on free agents and continuing to perhaps look for a trade for someone to help position our team the way we want it to be going forward. And then we will get ourselves set up for the 2025 season. So thanks again for watching, and we will be back with part 2 of our 2024-2025 off season in our next episode.